In the quiet corners of Europe, where ancient forests swallow the light and crumbling stone castles cling to the cliffs like memories of a forgotten age, whispers of secret orders still linger. These whispers speak of men and women who walked in the shadows, who moved unseen through the corridors of power, and who held knowledge so dangerous that it was deliberately erased from the pages of history. The stories are fragmented, scattered in cryptic symbols carved into cathedral walls, hidden manuscripts locked away in monastic vaults, and fleeting references in the diaries of nobles long dead. And yet, despite centuries of suppression, the echoes remain, faint but persistent, calling those who dare to look deeper into a world most would rather ignore. Long before the rise of modern Europe, a group of warriors emerged who would become one of the most enigmatic and powerful organizations in Christendom. They were known as the Knights Templar, sworn to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, bound by oaths of secrecy and discipline, and entrusted with treasures both material and spiritual. Their power grew rapidly, fueled by strategic alliances with kings and popes, their wealth accumulating in fortresses, churches, and treasuries across the continent. The Templars became a force unlike any other, their influence stretching into the realms of politics, finance, and even the esoteric knowledge that was carefully guarded from the common eye. Yet as quickly as they rose, they fell. The sudden dissolution of the order in the early 14th century was violent, deliberate, and, in many ways, suspicious. One day, the Templars were celebrated as heroes. The next, they were branded heretics, hunted down, tortured, and executed. Their grand halls were emptied, their treasures confiscated, and their secrets buried beneath layers of false histories. Officially, the order ceased to exist, a casualty of political intrigue and papal decrees. But history is rarely as simple as the chronicles suggest. Beneath the surface, there are hints, fragments of letters, obscure trial notes, and whispered legends. That not all Templars vanished into obscurity. Some, it seems, survived, disappearing into the hidden folds of European society, carrying with them knowledge that would become the foundation of secret orders, some of which may still exist today. These hidden orders were masters of subtlety. They did not march openly with banners or declare their existence in grand halls. Instead, they left clues in plain sight, embedding their presence in architecture, heraldry, and ritual. Churches were not merely places of worship, but coded messages in stone. Castles were not only fortresses, but guardians of forgotten lore. Even family lineages became vessels for secret knowledge, bloodlines carefully preserved to ensure that the wisdom of the Templars would survive the centuries. To the casual observer, these traces appear coincidental or decorative, but for those attuned to their significance, a pattern emerges, an invisible network of guardianship stretching across Europe, enduring through war, plague, and revolution. The fascination with these hidden orders endures because of their elusive nature. Unlike other secret societies that left abundant records, the Templar Descendants perfected the art of disappearance. They understood the power of secrecy and the danger of exposure. Every move was calculated, every symbol deliberate, every story deliberately veiled in allegory and myth. And yet, paradoxically, they could not completely erase themselves. Every now and then, fragments of their existence surface. A forgotten manuscript in a dusty library, a cryptic engraving on a cathedral door, a name in a genealogical chart that refuses to be forgotten. Each fragment invites us to question the official histories we are fed, urging us to look deeper into the shadows of the past. To enter this story is to step into a world where truth and legend intertwine, where mysteries are layered like the concentric circles of a labyrinth, and where the ordinary world conceals extraordinary secrets. It is a world where the past is not dead but alive, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the curious and the patient to uncover it. In the chapters that follow, we will trace the footsteps of those who survived, explore the symbols they left behind, and follow the subtle currents of influence that may still ripple through Europe today. We will encounter maps that hint at hidden treasures, texts that guard forbidden knowledge, and bloodlines that have carried the weight of history in silence. The journey begins here, in the quiet shadows of Europe, where the whispers of hidden orders beckon to those who dare to listen, and where the story of the Templars does not end with their official demise. It only begins. The story of the Knights Templar begins in the chaos of the Crusades, a time when Europe and the Middle East were locked in violent struggle, and faith and power were often inseparable. Around the year 1119, a small band of knights, led by Payans and a handful of companions, took vows that would set them apart from all others. They swore to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, to live lives of chastity and obedience, and to dedicate themselves fully to a cause that was at once religious and martial. But what began as a modest mission of guardianship quickly evolved into something far greater and far more complex than anyone could have imagined. The Templars' rise was meteoric. Their reputation for discipline, courage, and strategic brilliance drew the attention of kings, nobles, and even the papacy itself. Within a few decades, the order had grown into a network of hundreds of castles, commanderies, and fortresses spanning Europe and the Holy Land. They managed estates, collected tithes, and operated what could be considered the first multinational banking system. A noble could deposit funds in Paris and have them available in Jerusalem. And these financial innovations made the Templars indispensable not only to monarchs and merchants, but also to the Church itself. Their influence extended far beyond the battlefield, touching the very structures of medieval society. The wealth and power of the Templars, however, came with a price. Their rapid rise inspired envy and fear, particularly among kings and church leaders who saw them as rivals or threats to their authority. The Templars' independence, their secretive practices, and their intimate knowledge of political and financial networks made them vulnerable to suspicion. Yet for a time, the order seemed untouchable, a force guided by faith, cunning, and a singular vision of protection and knowledge. Templar Knights were not merely warriors. They were scholars, engineers, and keepers of knowledge. They built formidable fortresses that blended defensive ingenuity with symbolic meaning, fortifications that still stand in the rugged landscapes of Europe and the Holy Land. They preserved ancient manuscripts, copied texts from distant civilizations, and maintained libraries that rivaled those of the great monasteries. These knights were more than soldiers. They were custodians of wisdom, bridging worlds that the average European would never glimpse. Some historians suggest that it was this accumulation of hidden knowledge, coupled with immense wealth, that ultimately sealed their fate. The dramatic fall of the Templars began in the early 1300s, when the political winds shifted with sudden ferocity. King Philip IV of France, deeply indebted to the order and eager to consolidate his power, conspired with Pope Clement V to bring the Templars down. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, a date that has echoed through history as an omen, Templar knights across France were arrested, tortured into confessions, and accused of heresy, blasphemy, and other heinous crimes. Trials were conducted with predetermined outcomes, confessions extracted under duress, and reputations shattered with surgical precision. In a matter of months, the proud order that had once commanded respect and fear was brought to its knees. Yet even in their collapse, the Templars displayed a resilience that would become the subject of legend. Some escaped their captors, vanishing into the countryside or slipping across borders into neighboring kingdoms. Rumors swirled that treasures were secreted away in hidden vaults, that sacred knowledge was carried in code by surviving members, and that the order's essence was not destroyed but merely hidden from view. It is within these gaps, the silences in official records, and the shadows between documented events that the story of the Templars' enduring legacy begins. The tension between the official narrative and whispered truths is one of the most compelling aspects of the Templar story. On one hand, historians present the order as a powerful military and financial institution undone by political maneuvering. On the other hand, folklore and esoteric tradition suggest that the Templars' dissolution was merely a surface event, masking a more subtle continuity. Hidden alliances, secret rites, and coded messages may have allowed them to survive in new forms, blending into European nobility, religious communities, and clandestine networks. Every castle that bears their insignia, every crypt that hides unexplored passages, every manuscript that hints at forbidden knowledge, all suggest that the Templar influence did not vanish. It transformed. To understand the magnitude of their rise and fall, one must consider the scale of their operations. The Templars were not simply a military order. They were a state within a state. They collected taxes, managed estates, and administered justice in some regions. Their knights were trained not only in combat, but in diplomacy, strategy, and administration. They were revered, feared, and often envied by those who wielded conventional power. It was this combination of martial prowess, financial innovation, and esoteric knowledge that made them targets, and ultimately, legends. The story of the Templars' collapse is thus more than a tale of persecution. It is a story of survival, of knowledge passed down in secret, of ideas encoded in stone and parchment, and of influence that refused to be extinguished. As we explore the hidden orders that followed, it is essential to remember that the Templars did not vanish into nothingness. Their legacy, though obscured, persisted in ways both subtle and profound, shaping the course of European history from the shadows. In the coming chapters, we will follow these hidden threads, tracing the footsteps of those who survived, discovering the symbols they left behind, and uncovering a world where history is only a mask for deeper truths. The aftermath of the Templar dissolution was a time of fear, uncertainty, and whispered speculation. Across France and much of Europe, the arrest and persecution of the knights sent shockwaves through courts, monasteries, and merchant houses alike. Families who had supported the order or relied upon their protection suddenly found themselves bereft, their wealth confiscated, and their influence diminished. In towns and cities, rumors spread of secret trials, hidden treasures spirited away, and knights who had vanished without a trace. It was as if the Templars themselves had evaporated, leaving only shadows and echoes in their wake. Yet those shadows were not entirely empty. Among the chaos, some Templars managed to escape the clutches of their persecutors. Disguised as pilgrims, merchants, or simple travelers, they crossed borders and seas, moving into regions where the king's hand could not reach and where papal authority held less sway. These survivors carried more than their own lives. They carried knowledge, codes, and artifacts that had been safeguarded for generations. Every hidden manuscript, every symbolic carving, every carefully preserved relic became a seed for the continuation of the order, scattered across Europe like breadcrumbs for those who might one day seek them. It is within these disappearances that the mystery of the Templar legacy begins to deepen. Many accounts speak of knights retreating to the forests of France, the mountains of Spain, or the islands of the Mediterranean. Others suggest that some fled as far as Scotland or Portugal, embedding themselves into local nobility or secretive monastic orders. Some legends even claim that the Templars took refuge in distant lands, leaving traces in regions thought unrelated to their original mission. Over the centuries, these movements became the foundation of a vast, hidden network, one that operated in the shadows while Europe continued to turn its pages of history unaware of the forces quietly shaping its course. The vanishing of the Templars was more than a physical disappearance. It was a deliberate erasure of identity. Many knights took on new names, new roles, and new allegiances, carefully masking their true origins. They adopted the customs and languages of their host regions, blending seamlessly into society while carrying forward rituals and knowledge that were never meant to be forgotten. They were scholars in monasteries, advisors in royal courts, and merchants with secret ledgers. By integrating into the fabric of European life, they ensured that the order's influence could persist without drawing attention, a quiet presence behind the grandeur of public history. This persistence of influence is hinted at in the subtle traces left behind. Symbols carved into stonework, recurring patterns in coats of arms, and cryptic inscriptions in religious texts all suggest that even in hiding, the Templars communicated with one another. These messages were never intended for the masses, but for those who knew how to read the signs. It was a hidden language, one that transformed ordinary landmarks into repositories of secret knowledge. Scholars, archaeologists, and historians who stumble upon these markers today often dismiss them as coincidences or stylistic flourishes, unaware that they may be the lingering fingerprints of an order that refused to be erased. In addition to symbols and artifacts, the survival of the Templars was also rooted in bloodlines. Families that sheltered or married into the order became custodians of its secrets, preserving its teachings through generations. These bloodlines carried more than genetics. They carried stories, rituals, and codes of conduct that maintained continuity with the past. Over time, these descendants became part of the social and political elite, their influence subtle yet pervasive. The Templars, once a visible force on the battlefield, had transformed into a quiet power, embedded within the structures of European society. The impact of these hidden continuities can still be traced today if one knows where to look. In the remote wings of cathedrals, in the private libraries of old noble houses, in the architecture of forgotten castles, there exist traces of a lineage that defied extinction. Maps, ledgers, and manuscripts preserved in secret vaults suggest that some knowledge was considered too dangerous to reveal openly, from financial systems to mystical teachings. The Templars' emphasis on secrecy and preservation ensured that even when the world believed them destroyed, their essence endured, carefully protected and quietly transmitted. Yet the story of these disappearances is not without tragedy. Many who tried to safeguard the Order's secrets were hunted, betrayed, or forced into exile. Entire regions of Europe became wary of anyone associated with the Templars, forcing survivors to adopt ever more sophisticated disguises. This climate of fear and subterfuge added layers of complexity to their legacy, creating gaps in the historical record that continue to puzzle scholars and fuel the imagination of those drawn to the mysteries of the past. The more we search, the more we find fragments, fleeting evidence of escape routes, secret meetings, and hidden identities that hint at a sophisticated network operating just beyond the reach of conventional history. The vanishing of the Templars also invites a larger question. What was the purpose behind their survival? Some suggest it was purely self-preservation, a desperate effort to maintain life and knowledge. Others argue that it was strategic, a calculated attempt to safeguard wisdom and influence until the right moment in history. Whatever the reason, the legacy of their survival transformed them from an order of warriors into a web of guardians, scholars, and silent influencers, shaping Europe in ways that were invisible yet profound. As we trace these hidden continuities in the chapters that follow, it becomes clear that the story of the Templars did not end with their arrest and persecution. Their disappearance was only the beginning of a far more intricate and enduring narrative, one that stretches across centuries, across borders, and across layers of secrecy that have yet to be fully unraveled. The hidden orders that emerged from this crucible of destruction carried forward a legacy of vigilance, knowledge, and quiet power, leaving behind clues for those patient enough to seek them. and for those curious enough to follow where the shadows lead. Even as the official records declared the Templars extinct, hidden orders began to emerge across Europe, their existence carefully masked by the ordinary rhythms of medieval life. These groups were not openly militant, nor did they seek the spotlight. They operated in plain sight, often blending seamlessly into monastic communities, noble courts, and merchant guilds. To the untrained eye, they were merely pious scholars, devoted aristocrats, or influential advisors. Yet beneath this veneer lay an intricate web of knowledge, ritual, and influence that connected the survivors of the Templar order across generations and territories. These were not random groups, nor mere imitators. They were deliberate continuations, secret societies dedicated to preserving and extending the legacy of the knights who had once held kingdoms in awe. The challenge of survival demanded ingenuity. The Templar Descendants adopted new identities and loyalties, sometimes joining existing religious orders or founding entirely new ones. Some embedded themselves within the Knights Hospitaller or smaller monastic fraternities, taking advantage of the protection afforded by established institutions. Others found refuge among powerful noble families, marrying into lineages that could shield them from persecution and provide resources for the continuation of their hidden work. These alliances were carefully chosen, each move a strategic step in safeguarding treasures, manuscripts, and esoteric knowledge that, if exposed, could have been lost forever. The influence of these hidden orders was subtle but profound. While the public may have seen only devout monks or influential nobles, these groups were orchestrating a quiet continuity of power. They ensured that certain lands, titles, and financial networks remained under the stewardship of those loyal to the Templar ethos. They passed on arcane knowledge through private instruction, esoteric texts, and symbolic codes embedded in architecture and heraldry. Rituals and ceremonies were adapted to fit new environments, but the essence remained: the preservation of knowledge, the cultivation of influence, and the protection of secrets that were deemed too powerful to be shared openly. Symbols became one of the most effective tools of these hidden orders. Unlike weapons or armies, symbols could traverse centuries unnoticed, leaving a permanent imprint of identity and intention. In churches, castles, and private estates, geometric patterns, crosses, and other motifs were not mere decoration, but deliberate markers of continuity. Some were meant to communicate allegiance to fellow initiates, while others served as silent warnings or guides for future generations. To the uninitiated, they were often dismissed as artistic flourish or the whimsy of craftsmen. But for those who understood their language, they conveyed profound messages about lineage, loyalty, and secret knowledge. These visual cues were a subtle yet powerful way for hidden orders to assert their presence without drawing unwanted attention. Beyond symbols, the careful stewardship of texts and manuscripts ensured that knowledge survived even in turbulent times. The Templars have been meticulous record keepers, and their successors continued this tradition. Libraries were relocated, manuscripts copied and hidden, and codes developed to protect sensitive information from inquisitive eyes. Alchemical texts, philosophical treatises, and documents containing financial or political intelligence were preserved, often disguised as religious writings or scholarly works. This hidden transmission of knowledge allowed successive generations to inherit not only the Templars' ideology, but also their strategic understanding of power and influence, a silent education that continued far beyond the collapse of the order. The blending of religious, political, and social spheres was another hallmark of these hidden orders. Their influence was rarely overt, yet they occupied pivotal positions where decisions were made. In courts, advisors descended from Templar lineages shaped policy, steering kingdoms and cities according to interests that were often invisible to the public. Within the church, members of these hidden networks guided theological interpretations, doctrinal decisions, and appointments, ensuring that their traditions remained protected and that access to knowledge was controlled. Even in commerce, they maintained financial networks that allowed resources to flow discreetly across borders, creating a quiet but enduring economic influence. Some of the most intriguing evidence of continuity lies in the architecture of Europe itself. Castles and cathedrals contain traces of Templar influence, often hidden in plain sight. Concealed chambers, secret staircases, and cryptic carvings suggest that knowledge was encoded within the very stones of these buildings. Many of these structures were not merely defensive or aesthetic. They were repositories of wisdom, designed to protect sacred artifacts, manuscripts, and rituals from intrusion. Hidden orders used architecture as a silent language, communicating across generations, leaving a legacy that could endure even if the order's members were forced into exile or secrecy. Lineage and family connections played a critical role in maintaining the continuity of these hidden orders. Certain European noble houses, long believed to be independent or purely secular, show signs of Templar affiliation in their heraldry, traditions, and private archives. These families acted as custodians, marrying strategically to protect the bloodlines, wealth, and knowledge of the order. They preserved initiation rituals, secret ceremonies, and esoteric wisdom, ensuring that the Templar spirit could survive even when direct lines of knights were extinguished. Bloodlines became vessels of both identity and secrecy, a living archive of a legacy that could not be written openly into the annals of history. The survival of hidden orders was not without peril. Political shifts, inquisitions, and wars posed constant threats. Yet these groups displayed remarkable adaptability, evolving to meet changing circumstances. Some orders moved their centers of influence from one region to another, adapting their rituals and symbols to local culture while retaining the core principles of their Templar heritage. Others engaged in clandestine diplomacy, ensuring that the delicate balance of secrecy and influence was maintained. Over centuries, they became experts in subtlety, capable of steering events without ever revealing their hand. Ultimately, the hidden orders of Europe represent a story of resilience, adaptation, and persistence. They are not simply relics of a bygone era. They're living continuities, quietly shaping the currents of history through knowledge, strategy, and influence. By examining their symbols, architecture, texts, and lineages, we begin to see a pattern emerge, a network of guardians who have preserved the essence of the Templars long after the public narrative declared them extinct. Their story challenges our assumptions about history, inviting us to look beyond the surface of what is recorded and to consider the profound forces that operate in the shadows. As we continue to explore the Templar legacy, it becomes clear that these hidden orders are more than historical footnotes. They are living threads connecting past and present, weaving a tapestry of secrecy, power, and knowledge that spans centuries. In tracing their influence, we uncover not only the story of the Templars themselves, but also the hidden currents of European history, currents that continue to ripple through the present, visible only to those who know where to look and who dare to follow the shadows. Across the landscapes of Europe, the legacy of the Templars is often hidden in plain sight, encoded not in texts or manuscripts alone, but in symbols carved into stone, etched into manuscripts, and woven into the fabric of heraldry. These symbols were far more than decorative elements. They were a language, a secret communication that only the initiated could understand. For centuries, knights and their descendants used this visual code to convey allegiance, mark hidden locations, and preserve knowledge too dangerous to reveal openly. Every cross, fleur-de-lis, and geometric pattern served a dual purpose: publicly acceptable, yet quietly signaling continuity, purpose, and secrecy. The study of these symbols opens a doorway into a world where information had to travel silently. Some symbols were intentionally ambiguous, appearing innocuous to the casual observer, yet carefully designed to reveal meaning to those who had been initiated into the mysteries. In cathedrals, we find carvings that align with astronomical phenomena or numerological patterns. In family crests, certain motifs repeat across generations, hinting at hidden affiliations and secret loyalties. The hidden orders learned to speak through stone and parchment, embedding clues that could survive centuries of scrutiny without ever revealing themselves to the uninitiated. Seals and sigils also played a critical role in preserving and transmitting Templar knowledge. Official documents, letters, and ledgers were marked with intricate seals that acted as both authentication and a silent signature of identity. Beyond their administrative function, these seals were imbued with symbolic meaning, encoded messages about allegiances, locations of secret holdings, or instructions for future generations. The complexity of these designs was intentional, meant to protect sensitive knowledge while ensuring that those who were trained to read them could follow the trail without risk of exposure. In a sense, the Templars and their descendants turned everyday bureaucracy into a sophisticated network of hidden communication. Codices and manuscripts further preserved this symbolic language. Many surviving texts appear innocuous at first glance, written in standard Latin, French, or other contemporary languages, yet contain embedded patterns, acrostics, and cryptic diagrams that hint at deeper truths. These coded messages could reference sacred geometry, hidden treasure, mystical teachings, or strategic guidance. Some scholars have identified recurring motifs across different texts and regions, suggesting that knowledge was deliberately standardized and passed down through a careful system of copying and interpretation. Even the smallest flourish of a letter or the placement of a marginal illustration could carry profound meaning for those trained to decipher it. Heraldry, perhaps more than any other medium, demonstrates the Templars' subtle influence on the nobility and hidden orders. Family crests often contain elements that are strikingly similar to known Templar symbols, from the Red Cross to stylized swords, celestial motifs, and geometric arrangements. These symbols were not mere coincidences. They signaled membership, alliances, or patronage, and in some cases, concealed information about secret holdings, hidden manuscripts, or the location of relics. A coat of arms that appears purely decorative might, upon closer inspection, reveal centuries of coded information, a silent testament to the enduring reach of the order. Some symbols were deliberately placed in locations that would ensure longevity. Carvings in stone, inscriptions on pillars, and reliefs on church facades are designed to endure the ravages of time. Even when manuscripts decayed or buildings were destroyed, these symbols survived, offering clues to future generations. Cryptic diagrams and geometric patterns were used not only to convey information, but to encode rituals, philosophical principles, and mystical teachings. They became a form of intellectual inheritance, a silent dialogue across centuries, ensuring that the Templars' wisdom would remain accessible to those capable of understanding it. The interplay between secrecy and revelation is key to understanding the power of these symbols. To the general populace, a carved cross or ornate seal was simply part of the aesthetic of a church or a family emblem. To the initiated, each line, curve, and angle was a carefully constructed piece of intelligence, a link in a network of knowledge stretching across borders and generations. This dual function, appearing innocuous while concealing profound meaning, was a hallmark of Templar survival strategies. It allowed them to communicate and preserve wisdom in a world that sought to suppress them, ensuring that even when the order was outlawed, its influence remained alive in hidden forms. In addition to their functional purpose, symbols also served a psychological and ritualistic role. They reinforced identity loyalty, and cohesion among members of hidden orders. A symbol encountered on a journey could guide an initiate to a safe haven, validate a claim of allegiance, or prepare the mind for an esoteric teaching. These symbols were a shared language that transcended spoken word, allowing orders to operate under the radar while maintaining cohesion and continuity. In essence, they were the invisible threads that bound scattered members into a coherent, enduring network. The enduring fascination with Templar symbols is not surprising. Even today, cryptographers, historians, and esoteric scholars attempt to decode their meaning, uncovering layers of complexity that defy simple interpretation. While some may dismiss these symbols as coincidental or purely artistic, the patterns that emerge across centuries, countries, and families suggest deliberate design. Every repetition, every motif, and every obscure placement may contain lessons, warnings, or guidance intended for those who know how to read them. The legacy of the Templars is not just in history books. It is embedded in the very fabric of European culture, awaiting discovery by the curious and perceptive. Symbols, seals, and secret codes also functioned as maps of influence. They indicated safe passage, marked hidden chambers, or identified trusted allies. In a continent fractured by war, political intrigue, and religious authority, the ability to convey critical information without detection was essential. Templars and their descendants mastered this art, embedding intelligence in plain sight while maintaining secrecy. This network of visual and coded communication became a backbone for hidden orders, ensuring that the essence of the Templars could survive despite persecution, exile, and the relentless march of time. Through these symbols, the hidden orders of Europe communicated across generations. They created a silent archive, a living memory etched into stone, parchment, and heraldry, guiding those who could decipher it toward knowledge, power, and continuity. The true extent of this symbolic network may never be fully known, but it forms an invisible map, a trail leading from the medieval past to the modern world, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of those who refused to vanish entirely. Across the landscapes of Europe, the legacy of the Templars is written not only in symbols and manuscripts, but in the very stone of cathedrals, castles, and fortified abbeys. Their descendants, operating in secrecy, understood that architecture could serve as both protection and message, a silent record of knowledge, power, and hidden purpose. These structures were far more than functional buildings. They were encoded spaces, repositories of sacred wisdom, and instruments of control designed to endure centuries, even as human memory faded. The arches, vaults, and corridors of medieval Europe were more than feats of engineering. They were a canvas upon which hidden orders inscribed their secrets. Many Templar-influenced structures contained hidden chambers and passageways, often concealed behind false walls, beneath floors, or within towers. These spaces were not merely storage for valuables, but sanctuaries for knowledge, ritual, and refuge. Some contained sacred artifacts, while others held cryptic manuscripts or relics of immense historical significance. The placement of these chambers was deliberate, often aligned with celestial bodies, solstices, or cardinal directions, hinting at a blend of spiritual and practical considerations. For the uninitiated, such passages might appear as architectural anomalies, but for those aware of their significance, they were integral to the survival and continuity of hidden orders. Cathedrals, in particular, reveal layers of intentional design that go far beyond aesthetics. Sculptures, reliefs, and carvings often contain geometric patterns, coded numerology, and symbolic imagery that point to Templar influence. The layout of certain churches, with their labyrinthine crypts and concealed chapels, suggests that sacred knowledge was deliberately hidden in plain sight, accessible only to those trained to interpret it. Some scholars argue that these spaces were used for initiations, meditative practices, or esoteric rituals that reinforce cohesion and transmitted wisdom across generations. The architecture itself became a language, communicating truths that could survive even if the texts and oral teachings were lost or suppressed. Castles and fortresses, too, bear the imprint of hidden orders. Beyond their defensive purpose, many incorporated secret staircases, hidden rooms, and escape routes that allowed members to move undetected during times of political upheaval. Some of these structures were positioned along key trade routes, rivers, or borders, suggesting strategic intent. They functioned not only as military strongholds, but as nodes in a network, ensuring communication, safety, and continuity for those carrying forward the Templar legacy. Even in ruin, these fortresses hint at sophisticated planning, a deliberate effort to encode security, knowledge, and control within stone and mortar. The interiors of these buildings often included symbols, inscriptions, and artwork that encoded information about rituals, lineages, or sacred principles. Murals and frescoes, for instance, may depict allegorical scenes, geometric patterns, or astronomical references that were comprehensible only to the initiated. Columns and capitals were not merely structural. They often carried carvings designed to guide the observer toward hidden truths or to mark the locations of concealed chambers. These spaces served a dual purpose. They reinforced the cohesion and identity of hidden orders while safeguarding knowledge from outsiders who might seek to exploit or destroy it. Waterways and subterranean passages further demonstrate the ingenuity of these hidden orders. Some castles and abbeys contained tunnels leading to rivers, forests, or neighboring estates, allowing for discreet travel or the transport of sensitive materials. In certain cases, underground rooms were designed to protect relics, manuscripts, or sacred artifacts from plunder or confiscation. The strategic use of topography and natural features, combined with architectural skill, reflects an understanding of security and secrecy that extended beyond mere survival. It was a deliberate preservation of legacy. Sacred geometry also played a crucial role in these constructions. Measurements, proportions, and alignments were carefully chosen to encode spiritual and esoteric knowledge. Floors, windows, and altars often corresponded to mathematical ratios or celestial alignments, reflecting the belief that architecture itself could serve as a conduit for higher understanding. Hidden orders used these principles to embed wisdom in stone, creating spaces where knowledge, ritual, and symbolism converged. Visitors unaware of these subtleties would perceive only beauty and grandeur, while the initiated could navigate a layered landscape of meaning and instruction. These architectural choices were rarely arbitrary. The placement of doors, windows, and hidden passages often corresponds with historical accounts of Templar movements, safe houses, or pilgrimage routes. Certain cathedrals appear to encode maps or patterns that guide the initiated to hidden locations or relics. The repetition of motifs and designs across regions, from southern France to Portugal and beyond, suggests that a network of hidden orders maintained a shared understanding of these architectural codes, preserving continuity across borders and centuries. The preservation of sacred artifacts within these structures underscores the depth of planning involved. Some hidden chambers were designed specifically for objects of spiritual, mystical, or historical significance. These spaces were not only repositories, but sanctuaries, intended to protect knowledge and relics from seizure by authorities or destruction during wars. Manuscripts, relics, and ceremonial objects were carefully arranged, often accompanied by symbolic markers indicating their purpose and the protocols for their use. Such meticulous attention to detail reflects the deliberate strategy of Templar Descendants to safeguard both material and intellectual heritage. Even today, explorers, historians, and archaeologists continue to uncover hidden spaces that hint at a more complex European history than is recorded in official texts. Many discoveries are met with skepticism or dismissed as anomalies. Yet when viewed collectively, a pattern emerges, a deliberate and persistent effort to encode, preserve, and transmit knowledge through architecture. Each hidden room, secret passage, or symbolic carving contributes to an invisible map of influence, a network that has survived wars, revolutions, and the passage of centuries. These architectural legacies also speak to the adaptability of hidden orders. They understood that survival required subtlety and discretion. By embedding knowledge in stone and design rather than relying solely on manuscripts or oral instruction, they created a system that could endure even in hostile environments. Buildings became living repositories, silent teachers, and guardians of wisdom, ensuring that the essence of the Templars could continue long after the order had been outlawed. The study of these hidden chambers and sacred spaces reveals the intersection of practicality, spirituality, and secrecy. Every wall, arch, and stairway was part of a broader strategy, a silent testament to an order that refused to vanish, a message to future generations, and a physical manifestation of enduring knowledge. These spaces connect the present to the past in a way that texts alone cannot, offering tangible proof that hidden orders shaped Europe not only through symbols and rituals, but through the very environments in which people lived, worshipped, and governed. In following the trail of Templar descendants through architecture, one begins to see Europe differently, as a landscape layered with meaning, with secrets carefully encoded in stone, hidden beneath floors, and concealed in the alignment of buildings. The legacy of hidden orders is not just a story of survival. It is a story written into the very bones of the continent, waiting to be deciphered by those patient and perceptive enough to read the signs. Through these structures, the past communicates with the present, revealing a continuity of purpose, knowledge, and power that stretches across centuries. The legacy of the Templars was not only preserved in stone, symbols, and manuscripts, but also in the bloodlines of Europe. Certain noble families, some of whose names resonate through the history of kingdoms and empires, may have carried forward the lineage and knowledge of these hidden orders. These connections were often subtle, deliberately obscured through strategic marriages, carefully maintained genealogies, and the discreet integration of surviving Templar knights into aristocratic households. To the casual historian, these families might appear as simply influential or powerful, but closer examination suggests a continuity of purpose, a preservation of secrets that could endure long after the original order was outlawed. Bloodlines were the ultimate safeguard of the Templar legacy. Knowledge embedded in symbols, texts, and rituals could be stolen or destroyed, but family lineage ensured that certain principles, teachings, and responsibilities could be transmitted with a personal, living fidelity. Families acted as custodians, maintaining rituals, safeguarding manuscripts, and protecting relics. In some cases, members of these households were initiated into secret practices, taught to read symbols and decode messages that had survived centuries of persecution. These bloodlines became living archives, repositories of wisdom and power, capable of sustaining continuity even in the absence of formal organizational structures. Historical evidence, while often fragmentary, hints at these connections. Genealogical charts of European nobility occasionally reveal sudden alliances, unexplained adoptions, or the introduction of unfamiliar surnames, which some researchers suggest were the deliberate integration of Templar descendants. Heraldic symbols, family crests, and mottos often mirror those associated with the original order, suggesting a conscious effort to preserve identity while outwardly conforming to the social and political norms of the time. Even when official records ignore these affiliations, the patterns persist, quietly asserting the survival of a lineage that refused to vanish. These bloodlines were not limited to a single region. Their influence spread across borders, reflecting the international character of the Templar Order itself. From the fortified castles of France to the noble estates of Portugal, Spain, and Scotland, families who may have carried Templar connections found ways to integrate into local society while maintaining a hidden continuity. The survival of these networks required discretion, subtlety, and foresight. By embedding themselves within the elite, they could protect treasures, knowledge, and sacred rituals from the scrutiny of authorities, while still influencing politics, religion, and culture behind the scenes. The blending of Templar survival with noble influence also extended to the spiritual and intellectual domains. Families preserved esoteric teachings, mystical philosophies, and ceremonial practices, often under the guise of religious devotion or scholarly pursuit. Some manuscripts, copied and safeguarded in private libraries, contained allegorical wisdom that could be interpreted only by those initiated into the hidden traditions. The transmission of this knowledge through family lines ensured that the principles of the Templars, discipline, secrecy, and stewardship of sacred wisdom, remained alive even when the political order of Europe changed dramatically. Certain patterns emerge when examining the interplay of Templar descendants and European aristocracy. Strategic marriages, for example, often united families that held complementary pieces of knowledge, property, or influence. By weaving these bloodlines together, hidden orders created networks of loyalty and protection, ensuring that no single branch could be eradicated without endangering the broader continuity. This web of alliances functioned as both a shield and a conduit, preserving knowledge and authority across generations, regions, and even centuries. The legacy of these bloodlines is also evident in ceremonial practices and initiation rituals. Descendants maintained subtle traditions that echoed the original Templar ceremonies, from oaths of secrecy to symbolic gestures and coded language. While the external trappings may have evolved to fit new social contexts, the underlying principles endured: loyalty, discretion, and the guardianship of hidden knowledge. These practices served both as a bond within families and as a mechanism for transferring authority, ensuring that the essence of the Templars survived even when their original order had been dismantled. Artifacts and family holdings provide additional evidence of Templar influence. Many noble houses maintain private chapels, ancestral vaults, or collections of manuscripts and relics that bear striking similarities to those associated with the medieval Templars. Some of these objects are adorned with cryptic symbols or geometric patterns, hinting at their esoteric purpose. The careful preservation of such items demonstrates an awareness of their value, not merely material, but spiritual and historical. These artifacts became instruments of continuity, silently reinforcing the hidden order's influence across generations. The interplay of secrecy and influence was a defining characteristic of these bloodlines. To outsiders, these families may have appeared as ordinary aristocrats, their power derived from land, wealth, or political office. Yet beneath this public facade lay layers of hidden knowledge and carefully guarded secrets. Decisions, alliances, and even financial arrangements could be shaped by long-held principles originating from the Templar tradition. This subtle power was not immediately visible, yet it exerted a quiet and enduring influence, shaping the course of European history in ways that are only now beginning to be traced and understood. The endurance of Templar-descended bloodlines underscores the sophistication of their survival strategies. Even in the face of persecution, exile, and political upheaval, these families ensured that knowledge, ritual, and influence persisted. By embedding themselves into the aristocracy, they became stewards of an invisible legacy, capable of guiding and influencing society without ever revealing the full extent of their origins. They exemplify a quiet form of power, one rooted not in armies or wealth alone, but in continuity secrecy, and the careful cultivation of trust and loyalty. In tracing these bloodlines, a picture emerges of Europe as a landscape layered with hidden connections. Families once thought unrelated may, in fact, share ties to Templar descendants. Heraldic symbols, genealogical anomalies, and private archives hint at a lineage that extends far beyond the dissolution of the original order. These hidden connections suggest that the Templar story did not end with their persecution. It merely evolved, taking root in bloodlines that carried their knowledge, traditions, and influence forward through time, often unseen, yet profoundly consequential. The Templar legacy, though hidden in symbols, architecture, and bloodlines, was perhaps most profoundly preserved in forbidden knowledge, texts and manuscripts deemed too dangerous, too heretical, or too secret for public circulation. These works were carefully safeguarded by hidden orders and loyal families, protected from inquisitors, monarchs, and scholars who might seek to suppress or exploit them. Within their pages lay not only esoteric philosophy, mystical teachings, and ritual instruction, but also practical intelligence, maps of hidden routes, coded instructions for securing treasures, and detailed knowledge of political and economic networks that the Templars had once mastered. Each manuscript became a bridge between centuries, a living thread connecting the medieval order to its descendants. Many of these texts were encoded to prevent casual comprehension. Marginalia, acrostics, symbolic diagrams, and even mathematical ciphers were employed to ensure that only those initiated into the hidden traditions could access the true content. At first glance, the manuscripts might appear to be ordinary theological treatises, alchemical instructions, or scholarly commentaries, but closer inspection reveals layers of meaning concealed within the words, symbols, and illustrations. These codes were not arbitrary. They reflected the Templars' understanding that knowledge without discretion could be weaponized against them, and that survival depended on secrecy as much as skill. Some manuscripts contained mystical or philosophical knowledge, blending religious doctrine with esoteric teachings. The Templars, and later the hidden orders that carry their legacy, sought to understand the deeper truths of existence, integrating elements of Hermetic philosophy, alchemy, and sacred geometry into their studies. Certain texts describe processes for spiritual transformation, meditative practices, and symbolic interpretations of Scripture that were never intended for general circulation. By preserving these works, the hidden orders ensured that the intellectual and spiritual heritage of the Templars survived, even as their political and military power had been extinguished. Maps and cartographic documents held special importance. The Templars had operated across vast regions, and some manuscripts contained coded maps indicating safe houses, hidden treasures, or secret pathways through Europe and the Holy Land. These maps were often disguised as astronomical charts, architectural diagrams, or navigational guides, allowing the knowledge to survive while keeping its true purpose hidden from outsiders. Such documents could guide the initiated to physical and intellectual resources alike, creating a tangible continuity between generations of hidden orders. Beyond spiritual and practical guidance, some forbidden texts contained highly sensitive political and economic knowledge. The Templars have been financiers and strategists, overseeing extensive estates, trade networks, and banking systems that span kingdoms. Manuscripts detailing these systems, written in code or allegory, allowed their successors to maintain influence discreetly. Instructions for the management of wealth, the safeguarding of assets, or the negotiation of political alliances were transmitted quietly, often hidden within works that appeared scholarly, devotional, or artistic to the casual observer. Knowledge became a form of power that could survive centuries without ever manifesting publicly. The physical preservation of these texts was a deliberate act of strategy. Manuscripts were stored in private libraries, secret chambers, or within reliquaries designed to protect both the works themselves and the knowledge they contained. Monasteries, noble estates, and hidden study rooms became vaults of intelligence, carefully guarded by those entrusted with the continuity of the order. Often, manuscripts were recopied by hand, ensuring that knowledge survived despite wear, damage, or the destruction of original documents. Each generation of scribes, carefully instructed in the methods of encoding and preservation, contributed to a chain of continuity that has allowed these texts to endure into the present day. The pursuit of forbidden knowledge also reinforced the cohesion of hidden orders. Initiates were often required to demonstrate understanding of symbolic language, mathematical codes, and ritual practice before gaining access to sensitive texts. This created a disciplined culture of learning, loyalty, and responsibility, ensuring that the knowledge was not only preserved but understood and applied wisely. The manuscripts themselves became tools for education, moral instruction, and strategic preparation, shaping both the intellectual and ethical framework of those entrusted with the Templar legacy. Legends surrounding lost texts further enhanced the mystique of the Templars. Tales of secret codices that reveal the location of the Holy Grail, hidden prophecies, or forbidden rituals have circulated for centuries. While some of these claims may be mythic, they underscore a broader truth. The Templars and their successors cultivated a culture in which knowledge itself was sacred, dangerous, and highly controlled. Each text, real or rumored, contributed to the aura of mystery that has surrounded the order since its inception, reinforcing the perception that history is only the surface layer of a much deeper reality. The implications of these manuscripts extend beyond medieval Europe. Some suggest that hidden texts influenced Renaissance thinkers, explorers, and inventors, carrying fragments of Templar wisdom into new eras. The continuity of encoded knowledge may have shaped scientific discoveries, philosophical thought, and artistic expression in ways that are difficult to trace but impossible to ignore. The manuscripts acted as silent bridges across time, ensuring that the insights, skills, and esoteric teachings of the Templars could echo far beyond the centuries of persecution that sought to erase them. Ultimately, the preservation of forbidden knowledge was an act of defiance, creativity, and foresight. It demonstrated that the Templars, even after their official dissolution, had the means and the will to influence the world from the shadows. By safeguarding these texts, hidden orders ensured that the intellectual and spiritual legacy of the Templars would endure, providing future generations with the means to uncover truths suppressed by politics, war, and religious orthodoxy. The manuscripts were more than historical artifacts. They were living instruments of continuity, guiding those who could interpret them toward wisdom, understanding, and power. As we continue to explore the hidden threads of Templar survival, these lost texts remind us that knowledge itself can be a form of immortality. The order may have been outlawed, their knights hunted and dispersed, but the teachings, the coded wisdom, and the intellectual heritage they created persisted. It is in these manuscripts, carefully guarded and intentionally concealed, that the Templars' most enduring influence can be felt, an invisible hand shaping the course of history, whispering across centuries and waiting for those perceptive enough to follow the trail. Even as the Templar Order was officially erased from the pages of history, whispers persisted of clandestine groups that carried their secrets into the shadows. These hidden orders, operating quietly across Europe, were said to guard knowledge so powerful that revealing it to the public could shift the balance of power. Unlike the overtly military Templars of the 12th and 13th centuries, these modern descendants moved silently, weaving themselves into the fabric of society while maintaining rituals, symbols, and codes that linked them directly to their medieval predecessors. Some of these orders remained entirely secret, known only to their members, while others operated under the guise of charitable organizations, exclusive societies, or noble houses, their true purpose deliberately obscured. The allure of these hidden orders lies in their capacity to survive across centuries without leaving obvious traces, suggesting an extraordinary level of organization, secrecy, and foresight. Scholars and conspiracy theorists alike have traced hints of these orders in obscure references scattered through European history. Certain monasteries, private estates, and even churches bear subtle emblems, crosses, geometric patterns, and insignia that seem to echo Templar symbology. These are not mere coincidences, proponents argue, but deliberate markers, passed down to identify those who belong to a network whose roots reach far beyond the dissolution of the original order. In some cases, these symbols appear in plain sight, hidden in stained glass windows or engraved on stone facades, easily overlooked by the untrained eye. To those who understand their language, however, they serve as silent confirmations of lineage and allegiance, a secret handshake written in architecture. Accounts of initiation rituals within these hidden orders are scarce and often contradictory, but recurring themes emerge. New members are said to undergo ceremonies designed not only to test loyalty, but to convey a sense of historical continuity, connecting each participant to a chain of knowledge stretching back to the Crusades. The rituals reportedly involve the study of ancient texts, the decoding of cryptic symbols, and the enactment of ceremonial practices long thought lost. Members are sometimes sworn to silence under oaths as binding as those of the original Templars, and in some cases, the secrecy surrounding the rituals seems deliberately designed to obscure the order from the historical record. Scholars have debated whether these practices are genuine continuations of medieval Templar rites or elaborate reconstructions inspired by myth and legend. Yet the consistency of certain motifs across different regions suggests something deeper than mere imitation. While the historical record provides only fragmentary evidence, the influence of these hidden orders appears to extend beyond the purely ceremonial. Some researchers claim that members of these secret networks infiltrated positions of political power, banking, and academia, subtly shaping European history from behind the scenes. Noble families across France, Portugal, and Scotland, among others, are often cited as potential repositories of Templar legacy, their genealogies hinting at alliances forged to preserve secret knowledge. It is said that marriages between certain aristocratic houses were not merely matters of inheritance or convenience, but carefully orchestrated moves to safeguard the continuity of Templar wisdom. These strategies, if true, suggest that the hidden orders were not merely surviving, but actively maneuvering to maintain influence in a rapidly changing world. Legends of secret vaults and archives, accessible only to the initiated, add another layer to this shadowy narrative. Rumors persist of libraries containing manuscripts detailing advanced technologies, lost alchemical formulas, and esoteric philosophies far beyond the comprehension of ordinary scholars. Some accounts speak of hidden rooms beneath cathedrals, fortified estates, or even entire underground complexes where Templar descendants continue their study in secret. These spaces, it is said, house relics, coded maps, and documents that reveal an entirely different view of European history, one in which the Templars never truly vanished but adapted, evolved, and concealed themselves in plain sight. Modern encounters with these hidden orders are almost entirely anecdotal, often cloaked in mystery and ambiguity. Travelers, historians, and curious adventurers have reported strange, unexplained rituals in remote chapels or cryptic symbols carved into estates that have been in noble families for generations. A few accounts suggest that those who stumble upon these orders accidentally are often warned, escorted away, or even invited to join, depending on the discretion of the members. The secrecy surrounding these interactions reinforces the notion that these networks are alive, deliberate, and highly protective of their heritage. They operate in the liminal spaces of European society, visible enough to leave traces, yet elusive enough to avoid direct scrutiny. Despite their obscurity, these hidden orders seem to possess a keen awareness of both history and myth, deliberately blurring the lines between legend and reality. By doing so, they cultivate an aura of mystery that protects their existence while inspiring generations of seekers and storytellers. Every whispered tale, every coded symbol, and every secret ritual contributes to a living tapestry of Templar continuity. The hidden orders serve as guardians of this legacy, ensuring that the knowledge, power, and ideals of the medieval Templars are not lost to the annals of time, but quietly preserved, transmitted, and transformed for those deemed worthy. In exploring these secret societies, one cannot help but wonder how much of what we consider history is merely the visible surface, and how much lies beneath, guarded by those who choose to remain hidden. The hidden orders of Europe challenge our perception of the past, forcing us to confront the possibility that an entire network of Templar descendants has persisted through centuries, guiding events, influencing power structures, and quietly safeguarding knowledge that could reshape our understanding of history itself. Their story is not just one of survival, but of calculated preservation, a testament to secrecy as a form of resilience and the enduring allure of a mystery that refuses to be fully unraveled. The influence of the Templars is not only recorded in dusty manuscripts or whispered legends. It is etched into the very landscapes of Europe. From the rolling hills of France to the rugged coastlines of Portugal and the misty highlands of Scotland, subtle clues suggest a deliberate imprint of a network whose reach extended far beyond battlefields and cloisters. These geographic breadcrumbs, hidden in plain sight, hint at the careful planning of a secret order that sought not only to survive, but to map its influence across centuries. Ancient roads, secluded estates, and obscure churches appear to form a web of significance, as if the order encoded messages into the landscape itself, awaiting those with the knowledge to interpret them. To the casual observer, these sites may seem ordinary, even mundane, but to those who understand their significance, they are markers of continuity, a silent map of a power that never truly vanished. Traveling across Europe, one can begin to see patterns that suggest more than coincidence. In France, certain rural churches contain architectural anomalies, hidden chambers, unusual floor plans, and carved motifs that mirror symbols found in Templar manuscripts. In Portugal, castles long associated with the Order of Christ, believed to be the Templars' successors, preserve relics and secret rooms that align with celestial events or cardinal points. Scotland offers its own enigmatic markers, stones engraved with cryptic symbols, hilltop ruins that align with solstices, and estates said to have been passed down through families claiming Templar descent. Taken together, these sites suggest a deliberate network, one where each location serves as a node in a much larger system of memory, symbolism, and perhaps even guidance. Hidden in this network are clues that appear designed to challenge the modern observer. Maps from the medieval period often depict these locations with subtle distortions, encoded directions, or symbolic exaggerations that only the initiated might interpret correctly. Some historians propose that the Templars employed a form of cryptographic cartography, embedding knowledge of safe houses, secret passages, or treasure caches in a seemingly ordinary depictions of towns, rivers, and forests. This deliberate obfuscation ensured that their legacy could endure even under persecution, allowing future generations of adherents to trace the path left by their forebears while leaving outsiders in confusion. In this sense, the landscape itself becomes a living manuscript, each hill, stone, and river a letter in a complex, enduring code. Even more compelling is the alignment of certain structures with celestial bodies or astronomical events, suggesting that the hidden orders not only consider geography, but also the movements of the heavens. Churches, towers, and estates often align with solstices, equinoxes, or star patterns, a practice that some researchers believe was designed to encode sacred knowledge or signal timing for clandestine gatherings. These alignments were not merely architectural flourishes, but intentional acts, revealing a sophisticated understanding of both natural and symbolic landscapes. Through these silent markers, the Templars and their descendants could maintain continuity, encode rituals, and guide those with the proper knowledge across the continent, all while remaining largely invisible to outsiders. The concept of hidden maps is further reinforced by legends of secret passageways and subterranean networks connecting castles, monasteries, and estates. Tales abound of hidden tunnels beneath European towns, some said to stretch for miles, linking key sites of Templar significance. While the full extent of these networks remains speculative, historical accounts and archaeological investigations suggest that such passageways were more than myths. They would have provided secure routes for the movement of members, relics, and knowledge, allowing the hidden orders to operate discreetly while maintaining a degree of control over their environment. These passageways, along with the symbolic landscapes above, represent a meticulous layering of secrecy upon the physical world, a kind of encoded geography that could preserve the Templar legacy across centuries. This careful orchestration of place, symbol, and movement speaks to a level of foresight rarely appreciated in mainstream histories. The hidden orders were not merely surviving. They were planning for longevity, encoding their knowledge into the terrain and architecture of Europe itself. Each landmark, each orientation, and each subtle carving served a dual purpose: practical for those who knew the system, and entirely inscrutable for those who did not. In this way, the Templars ensured that their influence could outlast persecution, war, and the passage of time, leaving a trail of subtle, enduring fingerprints that hint at a story far larger than what history textbooks acknowledge. The network of Templar influence embedded in Europe's geography invites us to see the continent not just as a collection of countries and landmarks, but as a living testament to a hidden order's vision. These markers, cryptic and elusive, challenge the modern mind to decode a history intentionally layered with secrecy. They suggest a silent narrative in which the Templars and their descendants shaped the physical and symbolic landscapes around them, ensuring that their presence, though hidden, remained both tangible and enduring. In following these trails, through stone, earth, and sky, one begins to understand that Europe itself may be a map, a carefully designed canvas on which the hidden orders inscribe their enduring legacy. Amid the stones, landscapes, and hidden markers of Europe, another layer of the Templar legacy emerges, one of prophecy, mysticism, and esoteric knowledge. Long before the order was officially dissolved, the Templars were rumored to possess writings and texts that went far beyond the practical concerns of finance, warfare, or monastic discipline. These texts, some destroyed and some hidden, were said to contain cryptic wisdom about the universe, the divine, and the unfolding of human history. Known to few and understood by even fewer, these writings offered a vision of reality that was at once profound and perilous, suggesting that the Templars were custodians not only of earthly power, but of sacred knowledge that mainstream authorities were determined to suppress. Even centuries later, fragments of these prophecies and esoteric writings have been discovered in monasteries, private collections, and obscure archives, offering tantalizing glimpses into a hidden worldview that challenges conventional history. The nature of these prophecies is enigmatic, often expressed in allegorical language, symbolism, and coded imagery. They speak of cycles of power and downfall, secret bloodlines, and events that would shape the course of nations. Some texts are said to describe celestial phenomena with uncanny accuracy, as if the authors had access to knowledge far ahead of their time. Others hint at locations, treasures, or hidden sanctuaries, encoded in language designed to be impenetrable to outsiders. Scholars who have studied these fragments often note the interplay between myth, mathematics, and astronomy, suggesting that the Templars viewed the world through a lens that combined the mystical and the empirical. Every word, every symbol, seems deliberately layered to convey information only to those who possess the keys to its interpretation. These writings also hint at a connection between the Templars and other esoteric traditions that spanned continents and centuries. References to ancient knowledge, sacred geometry, and alchemical practices suggest that the order was part of a broader network of guardians who sought to preserve truths considered too dangerous or powerful for the general public. Some theorists argue that these texts encoded the very principles that underpinned European secret societies in later centuries, serving as a bridge between medieval monastic orders and modern occult networks. In this sense, the Templar prophecies are not relics of the past, but living threads in a tapestry of hidden knowledge, connecting the medieval world to the present in ways that remain largely invisible. The mystical dimension of the Templars is further amplified by accounts of visionary experiences, dreams, and revelations reportedly documented by members of the order. Some chronicles describe meditative or ritual practices designed to access hidden truths, often involving intricate symbolism, sacred architecture, or celestial alignment. These experiences, while shrouded in secrecy, suggest that the Templars were not merely warriors or financiers, but seekers of a deeper understanding of existence. The prophecies recorded in their manuscripts may have served as both guidance and warning, outlining paths of action and consequence that extended far beyond immediate political or religious concerns. In these texts, history and destiny intertwine, painting a vision of Europe that is as mystical as it is political. What makes these prophecies so compelling and so controversial is their apparent accuracy and their selective survival. Certain events, leaders, and shifts in power seem eerily foreshadowed in fragmented manuscripts that have endured the centuries. Scholars and enthusiasts alike debate whether these texts represent genuine foresight, allegorical interpretation, or a combination of both. Some argue that the Templars, through careful observation of human nature, politics, and celestial patterns, could predict outcomes with remarkable precision. Others believe that the surviving fragments have been selectively preserved to enhance the aura of mystery, ensuring that the Templars' esoteric influence remains tantalizingly beyond reach. Moreover, the Templar prophecies are often intertwined with the notion of hidden lineages and sacred bloodlines, reinforcing the idea that their knowledge was not meant for the masses. References to families, dynasties, and individuals suggest a deliberate strategy of transmission, wherein only those deemed worthy could inherit the wisdom and responsibilities encoded in the texts. This intertwining of prophecy and bloodline implies that Europe itself may have been guided, in subtle ways, by a lineage of knowledge kept alive in secret orders. The esoteric writings, then, are not just abstract musings. They are tools of influence, instruments of preservation, and symbols of a continuity that survives across centuries. The allure of these writings lies not only in what they reveal, but in what they conceal. Every line invites interpretation. Every symbol hints at hidden connections, and every fragment challenges historians to reconsider the boundaries between myth and reality. The Templars' esoteric texts, when read alongside their architectural markers, hidden maps, and secret networks, paint a portrait of an order that never truly vanished. Instead, it evolved, embedding its wisdom in every layer of European civilization, waiting for those capable of reading the signs. The prophecies and mystical writings are the heartbeat of this hidden legacy, a silent current that flows beneath the surface of history, connecting past, present, and possibly even the future in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. Beyond manuscripts, maps, and cryptic architecture, The influence of the Templars appears woven into the very fabric of European nobility, suggesting a hidden web of alliances and bloodlines that has endured for centuries. These connections hint at something far more deliberate than coincidence, a careful strategy by which the descendants of the Templars were integrated into royal and noble families to preserve knowledge, influence, and perhaps even power. The idea that secret lineages survived in plain sight is as provocative as it is tantalizing, implying that the medieval order, thought to have been extinguished, may have instead reshaped itself through marriages, inheritances, and clandestine networks that span kingdoms. Europe's aristocracy, with its interwoven genealogies and centuries-long attention to lineage, may hold the key to understanding how a hidden order could survive without drawing attention, blending into the ordinary rhythms of power while quietly safeguarding forbidden knowledge. Historical records offer subtle hints of these connections. Certain noble families, particularly in France, Portugal, and Scotland, bear genealogical anomalies that defy simple explanation. Alliances and marriages that seem to have been arranged not merely for wealth or territorial advantage, but to preserve continuity, identity, and access to secrets passed down by the Templars. Some historians suggest that these families served as custodians, guardians of an invisible heritage whose value was not measured in gold or titles, but in knowledge that could influence political, religious, and social structures over generations. Even today, the lineage of certain European families traces back to figures associated with the original order, hinting at continuity that is subtle yet deliberate. This continuity suggests a survival strategy designed with extraordinary foresight, allowing the essence of the Templar order to persist in a world that believed it had vanished. The integration of Templar descendants into royalty and aristocracy also appears to have a protective function. By embedding themselves within influential families, they could operate with a degree of safety impossible for a visible secret society. Their knowledge, whether esoteric, financial, or political, could be preserved, taught, and subtly deployed without drawing the attention of inquisitors, monarchs, or church authorities. Some researchers propose that marriages were orchestrated not merely as alliances, but as deliberate attempts to ensure that Templar bloodlines carried forward, that sacred knowledge remained within trusted networks, and that the influence of the order could quietly guide the currents of European power. In this sense, lineage itself becomes a form of secrecy, a living archive of wisdom, a human vessel through which history could be shaped and preserved. The existence of such bloodline networks is further reinforced by tales of hidden mentorships and covert councils within noble courts. Certain members of the aristocracy, according to some accounts, were tutored in knowledge derived from Templar teachings, philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and even proto-scientific methods, often in private chambers away from prying eyes. This selective education ensured that critical knowledge did not dissipate, but instead became encoded in the practices, decisions, and beliefs of influential families. Over generations, these hidden teachings could influence policy, military strategy, and governance, creating ripples of impact that are difficult to trace but profoundly consequential. It is in these quiet, intimate spaces that the legacy of the Templars may have been most carefully nurtured. Some theorists suggest that these hidden alliances were also designed to protect sacred artifacts, relics, or codified wisdom. By embedding Templar descendants within noble families, the order could create living guardians whose authority and resources would allow them to protect what others might covet or destroy. Castles, estates, and even private chapels could conceal hidden vaults, libraries, and ceremonial spaces accessible only to those within the trusted bloodline. In this way, the Templars' legacy becomes both tangible and invisible, embedded in people, places, and rituals that are shielded from the casual observer. The very notion of inheritance thus takes on a dual role: the transmission of wealth and power in plain sight, and the safeguarding of knowledge and tradition in secrecy. What makes the prospect of Templar bloodlines so compelling is not merely their survival, but the possibility that they influenced European history in subtle and profound ways. Political alliances, wars, and shifts in power may have been guided, at least in part, by individuals whose family histories were intertwined with the Templars' hidden legacy. Decisions in courts and councils, often attributed to the machinations of statecraft or divine providence, might instead reflect the careful counsel of those carrying centuries-old knowledge, a wisdom transmitted quietly across generations. Even a most casual glance at European dynasties reveals patterns of intermarriage, guardianship, and succession that suggest a careful preservation of influence, as if unseen hands had long been at work shaping the continent's destiny. Yet, for all the speculation and partial evidence, the existence of these bloodlines remains shrouded in secrecy. Unlike manuscripts or architecture, human lives are mutable and records are incomplete. The very success of these networks lies in their subtlety, their ability to endure without claiming public attention. Families may carry Templar heritage unknowingly, or recognize it only in the most symbolic of ways, through traditions, rituals, or an inherited sense of purpose. This hidden continuity reinforces the idea that the Templar legacy is not merely a historical curiosity, but a living, evolving force, quietly shaping the present while anchored in a meticulously preserved past. Ultimately, the story of royal bloodlines and secret alliances invites us to reconsider the nature of survival, secrecy, and power. It suggests that the Templars, far from disappearing in 1307, may have redefined their existence, embedding themselves into Europe's highest echelons and ensuring that their knowledge and influence could endure. Across generations, through marriages, mentorships, and concealed archives, the hidden orders maintain a continuity that history rarely acknowledges, creating a living network whose traces persist in both family trees and the broader cultural landscape. It is a network of strategy, loyalty, and preservation, one in which secrecy itself becomes a tool of resilience, allowing the legacy of the Templars to survive against the forces of oblivion and remain hidden, yet profoundly present, in the corridors of European power. Beneath the surface of European history lies a tantalizing shadow. The Black Book and other forbidden archives, rumored to have been safeguarded by the Templars and their descendants. These are not ordinary collections of records or mundane accounts of monastic life, but manuscripts and codices said to contain secrets so powerful that their existence has been deliberately obscured for centuries. The very idea of such archives evokes a mixture of fear, curiosity, and awe, suggesting knowledge that could challenge accepted history, reveal hidden technologies, or disclose truths about sacred relics that mainstream institutions have long denied. The Black Book, in particular, is described in whispers as an esoteric repository, a compendium of rituals, alchemical formulas, coded maps, and cryptic prophecies, preserved in secrecy by orders that trace their heritage directly to the vanished Templars. The legends surrounding these archives are as mysterious as the texts themselves. Some scholars claim that the Black Book was never a single volume, but a collection of manuscripts distributed across Europe to ensure its survival. It is said that certain chapters were intentionally scattered, hidden within monasteries, private estates, or underground vaults accessible only to initiates. Others suggest that these texts were entrusted to noble families of Templar descent, carefully guarded as both cultural treasures and tools of influence. Whatever the form, the underlying theme is the same. These archives were never meant for the public eye, their knowledge too dangerous, their secrets too powerful to risk exposure. For centuries, their very existence has been denied, discredited, or dismissed as legend. Yet the consistency of stories across regions hints at something more than myth. Much of the Black Book's allure comes from the suggestion that it holds knowledge lost to the modern world. Some accounts describe manuscripts detailing advanced engineering, cryptography, and even proto-scientific experiments. Others speak of rituals and symbolic systems capable of unlocking insights into the natural and spiritual world, blending metaphysics with practical wisdom. Allegedly, the texts also contain detailed genealogical records, mapping the descent of Templar bloodlines and linking them to royal and noble families, further intertwining the concepts of lineage and secret knowledge. The Black Book is more than a record. It is a map of influence, a guide to hidden truths, and a repository of wisdom deliberately concealed from the broader world. The pursuit of these forbidden archives has long attracted explorers, historians, and clandestine seekers. Many have claimed to glimpse fragments of the texts or decode portions of their symbolism, often at great personal risk. Tales abound of individuals discovering hidden chambers beneath ancient estates, uncovering cryptic inscriptions etched into stone walls, or being granted access to private libraries guarded by secret societies. These discoveries, however, are almost always partial, fragmentary, or heavily coded, preserving the sense of mystery that surrounds the archives. In some cases, those who attempt to fully access the texts report sudden disappearances, unexplained accidents, or insurmountable obstacles, reinforcing the idea that the knowledge contained within is intentionally protected by those with centuries of experience in secrecy. What is particularly striking about the Black Book and other forbidden archives is the care with which they were hidden and preserved. Unlike typical manuscripts, which could be stored in monasteries or libraries, these texts often employed elaborate concealment. False compartments, coded seals, and architectural traps designed to mislead or deter intruders. Some scholars suggest that even the language of the text was deliberately designed to obscure meaning, a complex system of symbols, metaphors, and multi-layered codes intelligible only to the initiated. In this way, the archives became not only repositories of knowledge, but also tests of discernment and loyalty, ensuring that only those truly prepared could access the wisdom they contained. This intricate design reflects an extraordinary understanding of both human curiosity and the passage of time, allowing the Templar legacy to survive while remaining concealed. The existence of these archives also raises profound questions about what has been lost to history. If the Black Book truly contains insights into ancient technologies, sacred rituals, or forbidden knowledge, then the conventional narrative of European history may be only a fraction of the full story. It suggests that the Templars and their successors were engaged not only in military and financial endeavors, but also in a long-term project of preservation. Curating knowledge meant to survive persecution, centuries of upheaval, and the scrutiny of authorities determined to erase their influence. Each hidden manuscript, each coded page, is a testament to the extraordinary lengths these orders went to safeguard the past while shaping the future in ways imperceptible to the casual observer. Ultimately, the allure of the Black Book and forbidden archives is inseparable from the tension between revelation and suppression. They embody the very essence of secrecy, knowledge that exists, yet cannot be freely accessed, power that is real, yet invisible. The persistence of these texts across centuries, despite war, destruction, and inquisitions, speaks to the determination and ingenuity of the Templar descendants. They have acted as custodians of a legacy that is not merely historical, but living, a reservoir of insight, influence, and mystery that continues to shape the undercurrents of European culture. In seeking these forbidden archives, one is not simply searching for ancient manuscripts. One is tracing a lineage of secrecy, loyalty, and preservation that stretches across time, a hidden network that refuses to be fully revealed, yet continues to leave its subtle, indelible mark on history. In the modern era, the echoes of the Templars' hidden legacy continue to resonate, not as overt power, but as subtle, enigmatic presences across Europe. Stories of secret networks and clandestine gatherings persist, hinting that descendants of the order, or those claiming affiliation, still operate discreetly, preserving rituals, symbols, and knowledge once thought lost. Unlike the medieval Templars, these contemporary orders are rarely visible, choosing to work quietly in the background of society, often under the guise of charitable foundations, private societies, or even elite clubs. Yet the intrigue they generate suggests that the legacy of the Templars is not frozen in the past. It is a living, evolving force, subtly shaping the world while remaining deliberately concealed from public view. Accounts of encounters with these networks, though sparse and often anecdotal, suggest that their influence reaches into realms as varied as politics, academia, finance, and esoteric study. Travelers, historians, and curious seekers have long reported unusual experiences in regions historically associated with the Templars. Some describe stumbling upon ceremonies or gatherings in remote chapels, cryptic emblems carved into estates, or symbols appearing in unexpected places, each hinting at the ongoing presence of hidden orders. These encounters are often fleeting, shrouded in secrecy, and sometimes accompanied by warnings or invitations, depending on the discretion of those involved. The mystery deepens when these sightings align with the locations, symbols, and landscapes already tied to Templar history, suggesting that the descendants are actively maintaining the continuity of the order while carefully managing exposure. In essence, they exist in a liminal space between visibility and concealment, leaving traces that invite curiosity without compromising secrecy. The rituals and practices of these modern networks, though largely unrecorded, are said to reflect a careful blending of historical continuity and adaptation. Some ceremonies reportedly echo medieval Templar rites, while others incorporate symbolism from esoteric traditions, sacred geometry, or even contemporary mystical frameworks. Initiates may be tested for loyalty, comprehension, and discretion, ensuring that the knowledge entrusted to them is preserved and respected. These rites, while largely speculative to outsiders, appear designed to reinforce a sense of identity, lineage, and responsibility, a tangible connection to the centuries-old mission of the Templars, reframed for a world that no longer perceives knights in white mantles roaming the lands, but rather the hidden custodians of enduring wisdom. Beyond ritual, the influence of these secret networks is suggested in historical and modern patterns of patronage and influence. Certain families, foundations, or organizations show an uncanny alignment with the principles, values, or even agendas associated with Templar ideology, from charitable work to the strategic preservation of cultural heritage. Some theorists suggest that this alignment is no accident. It may reflect a deliberate, long-term effort to steer society subtly while remaining invisible to those who would seek to control or suppress the order. In this sense, modern Templar networks function as both guardians and architects, preserving knowledge, guiding influence, and maintaining continuity without the need for overt recognition. Their power lies in discretion, their authority in the invisible currents that ripple through society unnoticed. One particularly compelling aspect of these contemporary orders is their claimed connection to hidden knowledge or relics inherited from the medieval Templars. Members of certain lineages are said to maintain private archives, concealed chambers, or even entire estates that house manuscripts, symbolic artifacts, and cryptic maps. These spaces, intentionally shielded from public view, may contain insights into history, esoteric philosophies, or techniques once thought lost. The preservation of such knowledge, coupled with the careful management of secrecy, suggests that modern Templar networks are not simply ceremonial or symbolic. They are active stewards of a legacy that combines intellect, spirituality, and strategy in ways that extend far beyond the perception of ordinary observers. The subtlety of these modern networks also speaks to their adaptability. Unlike the overt military and financial power wielded by the Templars in the Middle Ages, their contemporary descendants operate in a world where visibility invites scrutiny and secrecy ensures survival. They have learned to blend into ordinary society, using symbols and gestures recognizable only to the initiated, maintaining continuity without attracting attention. This duality, visible in the mundane world yet hidden in plain sight, reinforces the enduring mystique of the order and suggests a lineage not merely surviving, but thriving in ways that evade documentation. The modern Templars, it seems, have mastered the art of influence through invisibility, shaping history subtly while remaining enigmatic. Ultimately, these modern encounters and hidden networks challenge the perception of history itself. They force the question, how much of what we consider modern European society has been shaped, subtly or profoundly, by invisible currents of influence carried across centuries by descendants of the Templars? From clandestine rituals to private archives, from strategic marriages to carefully preserved estates, the traces of these networks invite speculation, inspire awe, and ignite curiosity. They remind us that history is not always what is written in books or displayed in museums. Sometimes it flows quietly beneath the surface, safeguarded by those who understand the value of secrecy, continuity, and preservation. The Templar legacy, it seems, endures not in the public eye, but in the hidden corridors of influence that stretch from the medieval past into the modern age. As the strands of history, legend, and secret continuity come together, a startling picture begins to emerge. Europe itself may be shaped by forces invisible to the ordinary eye, guided subtly by the descendants of the Knights Templar. This hidden power is not overt or brash. It is quiet, patient, and profoundly strategic, woven into the very fabric of society, culture, and governance. Every clue uncovered, from cryptic symbols etched into stone, hidden manuscripts preserved in private collections, and secretive rituals passed through generations, begins to suggest that the Templars' influence did not vanish in 1307. Instead, it evolved, embedding itself into noble bloodlines, secret societies, and even the architecture of cities, leaving a network of guardians who continue to watch over and shape the legacy of the medieval order. The evidence, though fragmentary, is compelling when seen as a whole. Patterns of noble alliances, the preservation of hidden texts, and the careful orientation of buildings, estates, and even entire cities hint at an organized intelligence at work across centuries. It is as though the Templars anticipated their fall and prepared a series of contingencies, embedding their principles, symbols, and knowledge into places and people that could survive the scrutiny of kings, popes, and inquisitors. The careful orchestration of marriages among European aristocracy, the safeguarding of sacred relics, and the clandestine transmission of esoteric knowledge all converge into a picture of a power network that, while invisible, has endured remarkably intact. What makes this hidden influence particularly fascinating is its subtlety. Unlike traditional institutions of power, the Templar descendants do not rely on armies or public declarations. Their authority manifests through quiet stewardship, guiding the preservation of cultural heritage, shaping political and economic alliances, and ensuring the survival of knowledge deemed too dangerous or potent for public exposure. In some cases, entire regions may be subtly shaped by the presence of Templar-affiliated families, whose decisions in governance, philanthropy, and intellectual life ripple outward with effects that are difficult to trace but undeniably significant. The hidden orders have mastered the art of influence through discretion, and their continuity is a testament to centuries of careful planning, loyalty, and adaptability. Modern accounts suggest that these networks are more than historical curiosities. Contemporary descendants are said to maintain private archives, hidden estates, and ritual spaces, continuing practices that echo medieval Templar rites while adapting to modern society. Their knowledge spans philosophy, science, mysticism, and strategic insight, and it is preserved through oral tradition, encrypted manuscripts, and symbolic architecture. Observers report subtle signs of their presence. Unusual heraldic symbols, gatherings in secluded locations, or patterns of philanthropy and cultural stewardship that reflect principles associated with Templar ideals. These traces, when pieced together, suggest a remarkable continuity, a line of custodians who have quietly guided history, safeguarded knowledge, and preserved secrets across centuries. The scale of this hidden power becomes even more apparent when considering the integration of the Templar network into European nobility and elite circles. Certain families, estates, and institutions appear to serve as nodes within a larger system, connecting disparate regions and generations into a cohesive web of influence. These connections are not always overt. Often, they operate through subtle mentorship, alliances, and selective inheritance. The goal is not domination in the traditional sense, but preservation, guidance, and continuity. The Templar descendants, in this reading, have acted as invisible stewards, quietly steering events and knowledge while remaining largely unseen, their presence felt only by those with the insight to recognize it. Legends of hidden treasures, sacred relics, and esoteric manuscripts intersect with this network, reinforcing the idea of enduring power. The Black Book, forbidden archives, and secret maps may serve as both literal and symbolic instruments of authority, guiding members of the order and protecting knowledge from those deemed unworthy. These artifacts, safeguarded across centuries, represent a tangible manifestation of the network's influence, a reminder that history is not always shaped by visible actors, but by those who work quietly in the shadows. The Templars' legacy, therefore, is not merely historical. It is living, present, and deeply intertwined with the cultural and political fabric of Europe. Ultimately, the revelation is profound. The Templars did not vanish. They transformed. Their knowledge, rituals, and influence were woven into bloodlines, estates, and secret networks, creating a hidden infrastructure of power that persists into the modern era. Europe itself, from the streets of Paris to the castles of Portugal, from the Scottish Highlands to hidden chapels tucked away in rural villages, carries the imprint of a legacy that refuses to be erased. The descendants of the Templars are not rulers in the traditional sense, but custodians of a hidden history, a force operating subtly, deliberately, and enduringly, guiding the unseen currents of European culture and power. As one contemplates this revelation, it becomes clear that the story of the Templars is far more than a tale of knights and battles. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and enduring influence. The hidden orders, their bloodlines, their forbidden knowledge, and their secret networks collectively form a continuum of power and mystery, bridging the medieval world with our own. The narrative challenges conventional history, suggesting that the past is never entirely gone but lives on in the decisions, legacies, and hidden guardianship of those who continue to honor it. In this climactic understanding, Europe emerges not simply as a continent shaped by known events, but as a living map of secrets, with the descendants of the Templars quietly ensuring that their legacy endures, hidden yet profoundly present. As the journey through hidden lineages, secret archives, cryptic symbols, and clandestine rituals draws to a close, the full scope of the Templars' enduring influence begins to crystallize. What was once thought to be a defunct order of knights, extinguished by persecution and political machinations, reveals itself instead as a legacy that has survived through adaptation, discretion, and foresight. The descendants of the Templars, whether operating through noble bloodlines, secret networks, or hidden archives, have ensured that the essence of the order persists, not as a visible army of knights, but as a living current of knowledge, strategy, and hidden influence coursing quietly beneath the surface of European history. Their story is one of resilience, secrecy, and subtle power, reminding us that the most profound forces often operate unseen, shaping the world while avoiding the spotlight of history books or public record. In considering the implications of this hidden legacy, one cannot ignore the role of secrecy itself as both shield and tool. The Templars, and those who followed in their footsteps, understood that knowledge, when exposed prematurely, could be destroyed, misinterpreted, or exploited. By embedding wisdom within bloodlines, encoded texts, concealed architecture, and ritualized practices, they created a system that could survive centuries of turmoil. The brilliance of this strategy lies in its patience. The Templars did not seek immediate recognition or power, but the careful preservation of influence, ensuring that their principles, secrets, and insights could endure across generations. Every symbol carved into stone, every manuscript hidden in a vault, and every family entrusted with knowledge served a purpose: to maintain continuity in a world that had sought to erase them. Modern Europe, with its familiar cities, estates, and institutions, is thus revealed to be a canvas painted in layers, with visible history on the surface and a subtle, hidden layer beneath, orchestrated by those who continue the Templar legacy. This hidden layer is not simply historical curiosity. It is a network of influence that touches politics, culture, and esoteric knowledge. Descendants of the Templars may not act as rulers in the traditional sense, but their stewardship ensures that critical knowledge and power are preserved, directed, and protected. They operate in ways that remain invisible yet impactful, a silent hand guiding the currents of society while safeguarding a heritage too potent to be left exposed. The enduring mystique of the Templars also underscores humanity's fascination with hidden knowledge, forbidden archives, and secret lineages. Throughout centuries, scholars, adventurers, and seekers have been drawn to the possibility that there is more to history than meets the eye. Manuscripts, cryptic symbols, and underground networks ignite the imagination precisely because they suggest that reality has layers beyond ordinary perception, that the past, present, and perhaps even the future are subtly interconnected through secrecy and guardianship. The Templar's survival, in this sense, becomes not merely a historical mystery, but a meditation on the nature of knowledge, power, and the responsibility of those who carry wisdom that others are not ready to grasp. In reflecting upon the cumulative story of the Templars and their descendants, one begins to see patterns of continuity, adaptation, and foresight that transcend the ordinary bounds of history. Noble lineages, hidden orders, clandestine rituals, and preserved archives collectively form a network that has endured not through force, but through intelligence, discretion, and planning. Each fragment of knowledge, each symbol, and each secret preserved over centuries is a testament to the Templars' remarkable understanding of both human nature and the passage of time. Their legacy, though hidden, has shaped events, influenced decisions, and quietly maintained continuity in ways that conventional narratives rarely acknowledge. Ultimately, the story of the Templars challenges us to reconsider the nature of history itself. History is not merely a record of visible events, battles, or public decrees. It is also shaped by those who operate in the shadows, who safeguard knowledge, influence outcomes, and preserve continuity across generations. The Templars exemplify this truth. What appears to be lost is, in fact, preserved. What appears to be extinct survives quietly in bloodlines, networks, and hidden archives. In this light, Europe's past and present are not separate realms but intertwined layers, where visible history coexists with a subtle undercurrent of hidden influence that has persisted for centuries. The reflection also invites a broader contemplation of our relationship with mystery, secrecy, and legacy. The Templar story reminds us that not all knowledge is meant to be public, not all influence is meant to be visible, and not all power is wielded in plain sight. There is a certain wisdom in discretion, a strategic intelligence in patience, and a profound continuity in preservation. By tracing the hidden orders, secret lineages, and clandestine archives, we gain insight not only into the Templars themselves, but into the enduring human drive to safeguard knowledge, protect heritage, and influence the world through subtlety rather than spectacle. In the end, the hidden legacy of the Templars is both a historical revelation and a meditation on continuity, secrecy, and influence. It suggests that the past is never fully gone, that knowledge can be preserved across centuries through care, discretion, and strategic foresight, and that even when power seems lost, it may endure quietly, shaping the currents of society in profound and unexpected ways. The story leaves us with a final, lingering thought. Europe, with its castles, cathedrals, and estates, is more than a collection of visible monuments. It is also a living tapestry of hidden guardianship, subtle influence, and enduring mystery, a testament to the Templars' vision, resilience, and enduring legacy, quietly guiding history from the shadows while remaining just beyond the reach of ordinary perception. As we draw the journey of the hidden orders to its quiet conclusion, the story of the Templars and their descendants emerges as a testament not only to resilience, but to the enduring power of mystery itself. What began as an order of knights dedicated to sacred duties expanded over centuries into something far more complex, a web of influence, secrecy, and continuity that has survived persecution, political upheaval, and the relentless march of time. The knights' swords may have been broken, their banners torn down, yet their legacy persists in bloodlines, symbols, hidden archives, and subtle influence woven into the very fabric of European society. In tracing this hidden order, we begin to understand that the Templars were not merely historical actors. They were architects of a legacy designed to endure far beyond the reach of immediate history. The epilogue of this tale is not one of dramatic battles or grand public gestures, but of patience, foresight, and adaptation. The Templars' true genius lay in their understanding of time and secrecy. They encoded knowledge into landscapes, architecture, and family lineages, ensuring that the essence of their order could survive, even if the order itself appeared destroyed. Today, those who carry this heritage operate quietly, often unseen, yet their impact may ripple through the corridors of power, the preservation of cultural knowledge, and the protection of esoteric wisdom. Theirs is a legacy that thrives in subtlety, reminding us that influence is not always visible, and that the most enduring power is often the power hidden from plain sight. Legends, manuscripts, hidden chambers, and cryptic symbols all converge to form a tapestry of continuity, one that stretches across centuries and geographies. From the sunlit valleys of France to the misty highlands of Scotland, from the stately estates of Portugal to secret chambers beneath cathedrals, the Templar legacy whispers its presence, offering clues to those willing to seek them. These traces, while often fragmentary, suggest a deliberate strategy of preservation. Knowledge, influence, and sacred secrets were deliberately hidden, encoded, and transmitted through generations. Even today, the echoes of this order can be glimpsed by those who look closely, teaching us that history is layered, that the visible record is only part of the story, and that true understanding requires attention to what has been intentionally concealed. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the hidden orders is the interplay between secrecy and survival. The Templars understood that revelation could be dangerous, that knowledge without stewardship might be destroyed or misused. By embedding themselves in bloodlines, founding covert networks, and preserving cryptic archives, they ensured that their wisdom would endure. This approach speaks not only to strategic intelligence, but to a philosophical understanding of legacy, that some truths are too precious, too fragile, or too powerful to be exposed prematurely. Their survival strategy was not one of conquest or domination, but of guardianship, a long-term vision that valued preservation above immediate recognition or glory. In reflecting on the hidden orders today, we are reminded that the past is never truly gone. It endures in the structures, symbols, and families that carry it forward. The Templars' legacy challenges us to reconsider conventional histories, to question what is visible, and to appreciate the extraordinary ways in which knowledge and influence can persist beyond apparent extinction. Every hidden manuscript, every cryptic symbol, and every preserved ritual is a bridge between the centuries, linking the medieval world to the present. The Order's wisdom is not merely a historical curiosity. It is a living testament to human ingenuity, foresight, and resilience in the face of forces that sought to erase them. As we conclude this journey, the hidden orders invite us to see history in a new light. They reveal that beneath the familiar landmarks, royal lineages, and written records lies a network of guardianship and continuity. Europe itself can be read as a palimpsest, where visible history rests atop a deeper layer of secrecy, strategy, and hidden influence. The story of the Templars reminds us that the past is not only something recorded, but something preserved, actively maintained by those who understand the value of continuity and discretion. Their legacy challenges us to see the world not only as it appears, but as it is quietly shaped by forces that operate just beyond our perception. In the quietest moments, when one walks along ancient streets, gazes at the ruins of old cathedrals, or studies the symbols etched in a centuries-old stone, it is possible to feel the subtle presence of this hidden order. It is a presence that transcends time, a whisper of continuity that links us to a past that has never fully vanished. The Templar story is a reminder that history is alive, layered, and often hidden, that the true depth of human legacy lies not only in the visible, but in the preserved, the secret, and the carefully protected. Their influence endures as both mystery and reality, inviting reflection, curiosity, and awe. And so, the story closes not with finality, but with invitation. It encourages the seeker, the historian, and the dreamer to look deeper, question more profoundly, and recognize that the past is always more complex than it seems. The Templars may have vanished from the public stage centuries ago, but their descendants, their hidden orders, and their preserved knowledge remain, quietly shaping the currents of history, while reminding us that the most extraordinary legacies are often those that remain unseen. The hidden orders of Europe, enduring and enigmatic, leave us with a final, lingering truth, that history is never only what is written, it is also what is guarded, hidden, and quietly passed through generations, waiting for those who dare to uncover its mysteries.